gilchis takachuhan adeikianu guya ya yat atius. Thank you all of you for the way you are behaving, or I'm not sure how else to translate it, but that um, for your patience and how well and patient you are as we're trying to navigate this, this new way of teaching through Zoom. So thank you all of you for your patience and those that are here. And I'll let you folks know now that the reason I asked them is for some help is so that we can create some short stories and using the language. And I'll kind of explain it here in a little bit. Or is that what we're going to do is use one subject. And the reason why I'm asking the purpose of these people that I chose is that I know they're language teachers. And what we're going to do is find one subject one subject to talk about, and it can be anything. It could be anything in the culture. It could be any everyday thing. Going to the store, do whatever have you. And with the subject, we'll try to find 5 different verbs that we can use. And with these 5 verbs, we're going to find 4 different ways to say it, 4 different ways to use this verb. And then once we're done, we'll create one short story with this verb. And then I tried downloading the what you call it, the Clinkit keyboard onto my laptop, but it wasn't able to get it or use it, so I can't type it out. Maybe somebody else can, who's a fast typer and has the keyboard. Um, Maybe they can type it out for me with these sentences, and if there's any grammatical changes that need to be changed, then I can help guide that. But this is our first time trying this with a large group. So again, everybody, thank you for your patience. And then if anybody has an idea of a subject we can use to talk about for something simple, go ahead and put that in the Tasha says all the snow. There's a lot of snow. Cooking, maybe cooking some. Let's see if Eva or Juan Plain want the weather, fishing. Let's see. I'll write some of these down as well. So we have weather, cooking, fishing. Eva says they're doing fishing at the moment. Eating. Okay. Okay, let's see. So the weather kind of seems to be coming up quite, and so does fishing. And those kind of can go hand in hand, but we need to focus on one. Weather, I think, is a little more of a everyday thing that we can talk about, so we'll kind of go with weather. And let's see. Need 5 different verbs dealing with the weather. So weather in general is called kute. So if we're going to talk about the weather, like I said, in the weather for in general, Negun, Kulchish, Kute. Rob, would you be able to add Negun as well? Kulchish. And let's see, let's come up with, let's focus in on one verb we can use for now. Uh, you can help scribe, can be on the panel too, though, so. Gulchish. So let's see, what's one verb about the weather so we can we can use. So what's the weather like right now? That's one we can use. Wasakuyati. So there's different ways of saying it. So for asking what the weather is right now, wasakuyati. I would say kuyati. Other people would say kuwati. It's just a slight difference, but they all mean the same thing. It's just different twang, as my auntie Nora would say, or their flavor. It's just the way they say it. But both mean the same thing. So there's kuyati and kuwati. All mean the same thing. So at this point, it's just kind of however you would, whatever feels natural for you to say. Wasip kuyati. I would say it with a Y. And so if we look outside right now, from where I'm sitting, let's see, I would, it's right now, it's just a little cloudy. So it's a quickly goods. And when I said we're gonna focus in on these verbs, there's kind of there's a pattern in here with kuyati and quickly goods. There's something in there that's kind of the same. If you listen to it, it's the beginning of that one kute. So we borrowed ku is referring to the weather. Wasuk kuyati, quickly goods. So outside it's cloudy right here right now. If we're going to talk about it in the past tense, quickly goods. It's a little longer. Remember, I said some of these things will change. And just people that are listening on and want to know how to write it, um, Negun is the one that's helping scribe for me. Gulchish. This is talking about in the past tense. Kushli goods. So the verb that or the word that we're focusing in right now is kute. If we're talking about tomorrow, so we asked, what is the weather now? Wasakuyati. If we're going to ask it in the future tense, we would say Wasakukwati. Wasakukwati. Wasa kukwati. And I'll pause here for a minute because there's quite a bit of writing that needs to be written down. And if you need me to say it again, go ahead and let me know. And so if you can highlight or underline kote is the so if you want to write on the top of your papers, kote is what we're talking about. Weather. Kote. Wasa koyati. Underline koyati. That's what we're focusing in on. We're focusing in on that verb of how the weather is right now. Kukwati. The weather will be. I don't want you folks to focus in on Wasa or anything else except for this part. We're focusing on the verb. And so since we kind of were talking about it's cloudy, ke kukuch laguts, ke kukuch laguts, it's gonna be cloudy. And then if you want to get a little more formal about it, seqanen or seqan. Seqanen means tomorrow. Seqan means on the day of tomorrow. So what's another Quisiat? Quisiat. Are you talking, Virginia? Gonna mute yourself. Okay.
I was looking at Kekakuklagus and seeing how you were saying it. They have Kekakuklagus.
Yeah, ke kuklaguts.
Kuklagus. Okay, because I wasn't hearing that. Kuklagus. Kekakuklagus.
Kuch is
Kuklagus.
it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to.
In the future, it's going to be cloudy tomorrow. Okay. All right. Sheesh. Kachchanak. Siutaku sitan kaklagus. So, yidat.
So in Wrangell right now it's raining. So if I were to talk about rain yesterday, like yesterday it was raining last night. Siudak was tan and tatke. It was raining last night or the other day or yesterday. So the way to say tomorrow is seqanen is how I usually say it. Another way to say it is seqan, seqan, seqanen, tomorrow, seqan, both mean same thing. And Nagoon just put down the words for today, tomorrow, yesterday. But remember, try and focus on the verbs. Uh, the nouns will naturally come to you as you start talking about it. So try and really focus in on these the verbs. Highlight them if you have to, or underline them, whatever makes it easier for you to focus in on it. So, teachers, when you're talking about the weather naturally in a natural conversation, K. Larson, hmm, let's see, the teachers that are on the panel, when you're asking a student or you get into a natural conversation with somebody, you're not thinking about it. How are you talking about the weather? How do you talk about it? What's something that always comes up? How would you, if you were talking with one of your peers about weather, what would you say? And try and take off your teaching hat right now, and you're not teaching the students, you're just talking with somebody. How are you doing that? So then that can help us focus in a little bit more on where we're going with talking about it. So
You just
normally,
say, how's the weather?
yeah.
Wasakoti, how's the weather?
Hmm.
And you asking if is it warm? Is it raining?
Hmm.
How's the weather? Yeah, yucky today, yuggy
Hmm.
today. How's the weather today?
Hmm.
Or
So,
mm,
Gook.
that's it, coach.
Okay. So normally, like when I call the elders, I'll ask them first, how are they doing? Wasiyati, depending on who I'm talking to. How are you, grandpa or grandma? And they'll respond back. And then I'll say, Wasaquyati, wake. How is the weather there? Um, and they'll respond, and then they'll ask me, Wasaquyati, ugh, could be another way of saying it. How is over, or I'll just respond. They won't ask, I'll just respond to it, depending on how it is here. So like somebody down in Seattle said it's windy. I would say Yatqa Ayauditi. Here though, it's really windy or it's windy, storming. Yatqa Ayauditi Kedain. So somebody asked for the severity of the weather. This all comes with inflection. I remember hearing my grandma Adeline when she would tell me it's really raining or really snowing or it's really blowing southeast. So she would tell me, Sanachtu. So the inflection comes in from your voice, how the severity of the weather. That's how you would say it. It's all on your tone. So that's how I would say it's really windy, or it's really snowing, or it's really windy, it's really raining hard. All depends on how you say it. It all depends on your feeling that you put into putting in the word, putting your feelings into saying it. So that's how I would talk about the severity of the weather. Or sometimes the other, let's say here's an example. I was talking to my grandpa the other day when the sun came out here for a couple days. Let's see, he went, eh, yatqa ayaw dikan ketain, hakataw dikan. He said, I don't know how to translate but it's an expression of something you that's really nice. Or I'm not sure how else to put it, but that's how he said it. Yatqa hakat digan. Here though, it's really sun shining nice on us. So when you use it, some of these expressions that can also tell you the severity or the how sunny it is, how hard it's raining, how hard it's blowing, depending on which direction. And uh, there's different ways of saying the sun came out. So let's say it's kind of cloudy, and let's say the sun came out from behind the clouds, or the clouds covered the sun for a minute and then came out. My gram told me when we were just sipping coffee, she said, "Ha, kakan zia." The sun poked his head behind out from behind the clouds again. So that's another way of saying this. What's up? Kagan zia. Kagan zia. The sun came out from behind the clouds.
Gagan kuch yaud zi ah.
Uh,
Kalachish.
and that's referring to the sun came out. So it's kind of funny that like I said, that it really paints a picture or it tells you what it's doing and all. So when that verb yaudzi is referring to something that when you're poking your head up behind something, that's what it means. the the sun poked his head up behind the clouds is how it's describing it. So if you were on the class the other day, I said it's a very descriptive language, and it's almost like watching TV. This is one of those that are like that.
Your interjection, hauk. That's a hauk.
Ha.
Hauk.
That
I
one's.
thought you said when you first said it, hauk gagan kuch yaud zi ah. When she was telling you.
So the word ha is another an expression. I'm not sure how to translate it. I've heard both. Ha. Ha. Hook, yeah, it's referring when it's like a hot, dry day. So like for me, when sometimes when I go to Hanes, when I was a kid especially, I used to get bloody noses. And it was because it would get too dry for me and I'd get a bloody nose. And that's how it is for me when it gets too hot and dry. Hook, my nose would bleed. So that's how I remember hearing that, the elders talking about it. And again, in that verb too, hook, the same thing. It's referring to the weather again. Hook, our hook, it dried out or it was dry. So it's just referring to the weather being dry. So Lingít, we use parts of words to make to make words. So as you can see, when I was talking earlier, Kuyiti, Kute was referring to the weather. Kute it means weather in general. That's just I guess the noun. You call it the noun in English. But when you use it, it changes. Kuyahuk, Wasakuyati. You're using yati for something that's now. Kuwat, Kuwati, Kuyahuk, Kuyausitakhan. When it's really hot out, Kuyausitakhan. Kuyausitach. All of these are using the word from kutet. The beginning is using that one ku. But it doesn't always, you gotta be careful. So remember I said Lingít can have multiple meanings. Here's an example. You away yandus, how did they say? You away. So you hear in the beginning, again, it does, this one's not referring to the weather at all. This is what it says is, this is what the people used to say a long time ago. So remember when in the beginning I said that you have to listen carefully to to the language because it'll change depending on how you use these words. So ko in the way we're talking about it now is referring to the weather. But if I were to use it in a ceremonial context, then it would change. But also it's just the context of how I'm using it. Ko is referring to people. Ku'u, we borrowed it from that. Ke can mean multiple different things too. Can mean pay, can mean saying something. It all depends on how our ancestors structured these words. Any questions so far? Anybody in the chat have any other questions? So Eva, Steaky, Juan Plain. If you want to think of a short 5-sentence story or interaction, maybe you had an interaction with an elder or one of your friends, will create a short story, and with that story we'll use that and focus in on that verb, those verbs that you used in English. Man, just think of it in English right now, and then we'll translate it, and then this is how we'll.
Could you say something like, how's the weather up there, referring to Juneau, or how's the weather down there, referring to the lower 48? I heard it was stormy and I don't know how you guys, was windy, Yodati. I heard it was really windy. Kunach, Yodati. 2 buildings fell down. I saw it on the news. Something like that.
Okay.
I'm only jumping in because it's getting nigh on that time.
Yeah. Okay, so with yours, with that sentence, I heard it was windy, where we'll shift the focus on that verb will be hua'ach. I heard it. I heard. Okay, so let's see. I heard it was windy. Ayauditi wake hua'ach. I heard it was windy there. And then someone might answer, ayauditi ketain. Yes, it is really blowing here, or it is really storming. So remember I said that your voice can add the inflection too of how windy it is. And say, ayaw diti kitain. So you can add that, use your voice to tell you how windy it is. If you're telling somebody who's out of state, or maybe they're just across the way in a different village, you're
Can you
adding that.
put, hey, Paul, could you put in there something about we uchja?
Let's see. You want it to be a certain direction, like if it's southeast or north wind.
Chia achchwe uchja? For the people that are up there, they could probably hear it there in Juneau, the wind.
Yeah, Hun. So a lot right now it's been blowing north wind. Hun do and Nick. Hun is north wind. Hun do and Nick. It's blowing north wind right now. So remember I said that people will say it different. I guess up here people will say do a nuke. Hun do a nuke. Or hun do a nuke. Or Hakaya DT. It's really storming on us. Eva or Shkeiki, did you guys come up with a sentence or anything in English? So those, I see some people are getting ready to leave. With these sentences, use them as much as you can. Use them so you remember it. Remember to focus on the verb. That's really gonna help you to remember it.
It snowed so much that when it finally rained, it flooded. Somebody's been asking for that translation.
Okay, so the way I would say it, Tlaita kwistan kitain akawe wusla awetle wusla, and then it melted. Techaya awlikuyach uti, and then it's like it flooded. So for something that melted in general, it's a wutla. But like I said again, that you gotta be how you use it. Can also sometimes can almost sound like the tide went out too. So, but in this, remember I said in this context, it melted. So you can say aqa or you can say wetle, either one, and it melted. It means same thing. I guess you could say hawutau. We're sinking, or we sank. So when you said it flooded, that reminded me of a story of my gram. I was getting ready to cook one short story. I was getting ready to cook dinner one time, and it was snowing or raining real hard. You know, summer or fall time, it rains hard. Siwa tulitsin haka waqit qik akkehat wuti. Awa ayaw sitin we hashtuk akanak. It was starting to drip. So it was raining so hard, it was starting to come through our ventilation. And I told my Gram, I said it's dripping real bad above the stove, and without missing a beat, my Gram looked at me and she said, "We're sinking." So that's what reminded me of that story, where someone asked. It started to flood, so it reminded me of my Gram telling me we're sinking in our house. So, Kanchish, seems like everyone has to get back to work. Thank you, all of you, for your time and patience, especially with this class or the Zoom link that we had. We're still getting some of these kinks worked out. So, Kanchish, Lakachuhan, we'll go over it again Friday. We'll go over things again Friday, and then try and come up with a new one. And so Eva, you talked about the fishing. You're doing fishing, eating, cooking. If you guys can come up with a few sentences or verbs out of those, and then we'll come up with a short story.
Gonatchish Yana Ain. Gonatchish. Ziagansa.
Friday cookie Quasitin. I'll see you all Friday. Same time.
Same time, same bat station.